Well, I didn't ever find the chairman of the company, but I found his influence everywhere.
What do you mean?
Well, he's like the wizard behind the curtain. This is the son of the founder, Lee.
That's not a good thing to be. The wizard was a little old man who didn't get much done.
In this case, it's an old man who's got $11 billion, so I guess he's faring a little better than the wizard.
Yes.
But when you go to visit Samsung, I mean, you interview people there and you say, tell me why your company's been so successful. And to a man and woman, they all say the same thing. They all say, because we have faithfully executed the vision of our chairman. I mean, it is really just this complete.
That doesn't sound like Cupertino, California to me.
It does not sound like Cupertino. It doesn't sound like Palo Alto. It doesn't sound like anything that we've encountered in Silicon Valley or here in the United States. But it is a very disciplined, highly focused conglomerate, which is kind of an oxymoron, of course. But Samsung has managed to see its revenues increase in the last 20 years 5,700%.
Does this surprise you in any way, just understanding this mantra, the way this company operates, and how different it is from Apple?
Well, there's a couple of things. To their point, Samsung has executed very, very well, but the core technology behind what's driving their growth today, which is mobile, actually they did not invent, which is Android. And I think the most telling thing at their Galaxy 4 reveal a couple weeks ago here in New York that I went to
was the tap dancer.
Yeah, the tap dancer was fantastic. Apple should get him, and then, and a 5-inch screen, and then their stock would go back up. But no, was that they were showing off software. S-Services, S-Translate, and S-Drive, these are all things that Google has. And so what Samsung is implicitly telling you is they are worried about the control that they have or don't have over what Google does with Android or what Google does with the Chrome operating system in the future. So I think actually Samsung is not going to have a few headwinds going forward. First, you have the Korean won going the opposite direction. The entire time that Sony was going down, right, the Korean won was going down, which actually really helped them, particularly in Europe. Second, you have this issue with the phone. So later this year, we'll see the Nexus 5 come out from Google, competing more directly at the high end. Then the Motorola X phone will come out later this year, also competing with Samsung at the high end of the market. And then longer term or medium term, a big customer for them is actually Apple. And I think I'm pretty convinced at this point that as soon as they have the capacity to, Apple will move their foundry business away from Samsung.
I think it goes a little bit both ways, right? As far as the Google-Samsung relationship, Samsung is now the manufacturer of 40% of all Android handsets. So they are the dominant player in that area. Interesting fact I discovered along the way here was that it's Samsung's mobile profits, just mobile, are greater than all of Google's profits from everything they do. And so somewhere along the way, Google wanted to set up a system with Android, right, that would have, let's call it 4 favored manufacturers: Motorola, Samsung, HTC, it was HP was one of them. What they've discovered, of course, is that it's all pretty much become Samsung. And Motorola now, of course, a part of Google, which makes Samsung a little bit nervous too. And how they kind of navigate forward now, is the tail wagging the dog or so forth, remains to be seen.
Are they really culturally that different, though? When you think about Steve Jobs as a leader, there is sort of this mystical vision, and this is how Steve saw things. So
you're absolutely right. I think the difference is that, as far as I am aware, Apple employees are not given a 200-page book of the teachings of Steve Jobs when they come to join Apple, which is exactly what they get.
That sounds more like Bridgewater, actually.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they get when they join Samsung. They also get a glossary book to accompany the original book. And if they work in a country where literacy rates are low, they get a cartoon version.
Okay, but do other companies in that region also have similar things like that, or it's just Samsung?
There is to some
degree.
LG,
for example.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, in Asia, there are certain traditions that are going to seem odd to a Western business person. But Samsung, I mean, militaristic was the word that kept coming up when I was talking to analysts. More so than LG, more so than SK, more so than Hyundai. There is something very, very centralized and driven at that company in particular.
So, long term.
Can they innovate?
Yeah,
is
that's the question.
It's an excellent question.
Can a militaristic company innovate in a way that keeps pace with the most
to me, this looks
in the world?
a lot like what we had in Japan, right? Sony was never that militaristic, but if you actually look at Sharp and Panasonic and Toshiba, that's how they ran. And so those companies executed really well. They owned consumer electronics as you were buying consumer electronics, and today they don't, right? So Samsung could easily go, listen, Samsung's a great company, it's a great balance sheet, it's reasonably priced stock, but like I said at the beginning, I think there's some headwinds coming up that maybe
well,
people haven't recognized.
Sony gave us the Walkman. Sony gave us the compact disc. Sony gave us home video.
Eric still uses one.
Excellent.
He does.
You know, you got a mini disc,
along
right?
with my
You-
track collection.
Right. Apple gave us the iPod and the iPhone. I mean, you're absolutely right. Samsung is a fast follower.
But are they aware of this? Are they aware that
Yes.
there is a creative spark that you see at a company like Apple and at Google, for that matter, doesn't appear to exist yet at Samsung?
They are hyper aware of it.
But why do they need to be an innovator? Look how well Samsung has done. Look at the force that they are. Why not let Apple be the fruitarian innovators and Samsung just cash in?
I think they realize that they need to develop more, particularly on the software side. That's where the innovation is going to happen, and they haven't been very strong in that
I mean, I
area.
remember what Samsung phones were like pre-Android, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
were awful.
Correct.
Sure.
I mean, so my question is, would you put all your family photos with Samsung today? Right. I mean, people are doing that with Google, they're doing it with Facebook, they're doing it with Apple and the iCloud. Would you give all your technology, all your software to Samsung? And so I think that that's going to be a big question, because the core operating system that they run on, they didn't invent.